Hello folks, today I'm sitting here with our hazels, which I grew from seed as a experimental selection program which I'm trying to do. And it's now time to start planting those out. They were deliberately planted close to one another. When the plants are younger, they benefit from being in close proximity. But after 4 and 5 years respectively, we now have already had fruit on some of them, so I know which ones I want to propagate and which ones I'll be giving them a bit more time to see if they fruit better the next year, because usually the first 1 or 2 years of fruiting for the hazels are not always representative. Sometimes they make very small or distorted nuts. So I'll link in the description to the video from summer where I talk more about those plants here. This one, which is almost 2 meters tall, is the oldest. And you'll learn more about my intentions for those plants. And today for the vlogmas, I just wanted to show you one of the plants which I'll be digging out and separating the root ball and planting the separate plants in another location nearby. So in the long term we'll end up with like a hedge of hazel plants. So those are the 3 plants which I'll be working on today. They are spaced very close together. You can see that the nuts here were planted maybe 50 centimeters apart between those two, and that is a bit further out, but not by much, maybe 60 centimeters. And you can see that this one is developed very nicely. It already has like a dozen stems, some of them of nice thickness. It's already producing male and female flowers, if a bit sparingly. And this year it was the first it had any nuts on it. They were of good quality, but this one, the smaller bush, it's actually produced very nice hazels, large size, almond shaped, very nice taste. And also out of those 1 2 3 4 5 seedling plants, there was another one which I gave away as a gift. Out of those plants, this one is the earliest fruiting. It has already set very nice male catkins, I think they're called, on multiple branches here. It will be hard to focus, but you can see we have lots of those, and I suspect that we will also have lots of the female buds. This one here, you can distinguish it from the regular flower bud by the fact that it has a very slight purple pinkish dot in the middle, which will be the inflorescence, so to call. So you can see here that this was the original. It has the most it's not the thickest, but it has the oldest looking bark on it. This is the original stem which grew, which was then either cut or nibbled by some animal, or maybe trampled by us, I don't know. But the growing tip was removed, and then it struggled to grow. This is the second year growth, and this is the third year, and this is the fourth year growth. In the meantime, however, the fact that it was stunted at the main stem, it made it grow new shoots. So this one is older than this one by 1 year, and you can see how much thicker and more vigorous this one grew without the removal of the growing tip. So this came out on the next year, and those two on the same year. And what I am aiming to do now is to uproot the whole plant. So I'll dig around it and remove the whole root ball as much as I can, and then I'll separate it like this so I can get 4 plants ideally, and this one, the oldest, I'll probably discard if it doesn't separate nicely. But in the same time, you can see here this tiny baby plant, and here as well, are root suckers which came late in the summer, so they're in small size. And those plants, they will be remaining here in that spot, which will otherwise be empty, and they will grow slower, but in a few years time they will probably be big enough to plant out as well. And the shade from the bigger plant here, it won't be much of a problem for a small plant. And also I want to have them spaced a bit further out, so each of them can have its proper space to develop. And next year I'll be moving that one. I'm still not sure if I'll be removing it completely from the garden or just planting it somewhere out in the field, because I still haven't seen the nuts on this plant, and so far it hasn't set any male fruit, male flowers. So before I'm planting it out down that line in that direction and here as well, I want to be sure that we have good fruit on the plants. And in the meantime, last spring with the kids, we planted some of the hazels here on the upper side, on the more sunnier side, and you can see that they sprouted, and they didn't grow very much. There are a few more, but they're just bare sticks now. So those plants will be dug out as well, and I'll plant them out here in the empty space next to that campanula flower here, and they will continue the cycle of developing and growing. And if I see that they produce nice fruit, then I'll use them elsewhere in the garden. And if not, I'm just uprooting them and planting them out in the wild, because even smaller hazels are very nice wildlife food. And also this will help the blue jays, the magpies, the squirrels to propagate more and more hazels in the vicinity, because currently other than planted in the people's gardens bushes, there are no hazels in the wild in like a 1 kilometer diameter. We don't have like hazel forests, hazel thickets, which I've seen in the mountains. So that's the main idea for today. I'll start digging now. But this is the planted, and this is the main root which I had to cut. And now I'll try to separate that in several different plants, each with its own part of the root system. And you can see here probably that it has already started putting up new growth, new root suckers, which were sitting under the soil so far, and now they will grow very rapidly in spring. Also here in the leaf litter, I found one of the hazels which we failed to harvest. You can see the shape and size of it. So I'll be planting that as well in the original location. And also, part of the root remain in the soil here, and I left the root suckers in here as well, so they grow mostly undisturbed. The original root is still in the ground. A few sections here and there tore off, but those will become worm food soon enough. And in the next few years, this little twig here will hopefully reach at least that size. This is how I'll do the very simple separation of the plant. Basic garden pruners or shears. I'm just feeling my way around the root ball and finding the spot where the different stems connect to a common core, and I'll be cutting at that spot. Okay, so this is the first one. It has enough of a root to grow nicely. It's two stems which are fused down here, so I won't be separating them. And you can see here that it's already working towards new root suckers at the root branches, the root tips. What I'll do is to make it a bit easier for the plant is just trim some of the tiny side branches and leave more of the upper ones in order to have less stress when it starts developing. Sure, I'll be losing a few buds and maybe a few fruit, but the plant will take better in its new location, and that is good enough for me. So this will be one plant, and let's see if we can make a couple more here and there. Usually with larger and more developed hazel bushes, it's this process is easier because with time the root suckers and the new growth starts to diverge from the original root, so it's way easier to, I can even use a machete to separate the clump. Okay, so this is the second plant. You can see it has a new growth bud here, nice little root. I'll snip some of the side branches, and this is the third plant, and I'll try to separate that as well. And let's see how that goes. I don't think that this will be possible. So instead of separating that, I'll just remove the oldest branch which I showed you earlier, as they share the same root with this most vigorous part of the hazel. Removing just a few of the side branches here, and a broken one right here, and this will be planted, and this will be the main plant. You can see here where the main taproot went in the soil, and it will grow a new one, and this is where I separated the other three plants, and this is the whole plant to the top. So you can see it's a very well developed plant, and I hope that it will grow well in the coming years. So that was all for today, folks. I'll go plant this hazel now, and I'll see you tomorrow.